have to say that I think Hyun-woo is the biggest hypocrite ever. Like, I've never seen a more hypocritical character before. Hi guys, welcome to the Dramasology Podcast. This is a review of Reborn Rich, episodes 15 and 16, as well as just like me giving my final thoughts on the drama since it ends this week. Reborn Rich stars Song Joong-ki, Shin Hyun-bin and Sung-min, and we've basically come to the end of this drama after 16 episodes. And I mean, this was a roller coaster 2 episodes that we just ended with, because so much things were happening in this final episodes that I feel like they probably should have eased into it a bit, because it feels rushed in a way. But you know, that's just me. So last episode 14, Jin Do-jun gets into a car accident, right? And when we start episode 16, we find out that he's been basically returned back into the original timeline. So he's back to being Hyun-woo, and we also find out that Hyun-woo did not die, and actually he was, I don't know, they never really explained what happened to him, but maybe he was in a coma. I don't know. We're not really sure what is going on with the 2 timelines. And he doesn't seem sure either. But yeah, he's returned back into the original timeline and saved by Sung Min-young's character, or saved by Sung Min-young. And we find out that Jin Do-jun has been dead for 20 years. So he basically went back in time, lived the life of somebody else, or lived the life of Jin Do-jun. And you know, after Jin Do-jun was killed, he's returned back into his original timeline. And I like that idea. I was not expecting it to play out in that way, in that he's the original Jin Do-jun that, you know, was killed back 20 years ago. So in the beginning, when we find out that Jin Do-jun's mother, the actress, goes to talk to, you know, the family about this death of her son, you know, I assumed then that he died when he was young or something. Like, say, what I was thinking was that, you know, Ji Sung-joo maybe killed him in a drunken fit or something, like when he was younger. But that's actually the case. He was killed after he succeeded and, you know, became the largest shareholder of Sunyan Group, not in childhood. And I also I feel like I have to bite my tongue now and take back a few comments I said, because I mentioned in my last review that I thought the eldest uncle was a good person, and it turns out he's not a good person. He's the one that, and again, spoiler alert if you've not seen, you know, the last few episodes that we've just watched, he turns out that he's the one that basically orchestrated the death of Jin Do-jun. So actually it wasn't Jin Sung-jun. Jin Sung-jun actually has very little to do with this, right? But everybody assumes it's him. Because again, I think they also see what I seen, that he has this way of looking that makes him seem like the one that's committing the crimes, you know. And so his dad that, you know, orchestrated this whole thing. And actually orchestrated this because not just to get rid of Jin Do-jun, but also to put his son under control. Because we find there's a scene where Jin Sung-jun is basically begging his dad that he's not the one that killed Jin Do-jun, and his dad is brings out the business card and shows him that we found this in his pocket, blah 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 blah. And so all of that points to Jin Sung-jun as the killer, and his dad is basically blackmailing him that, you know, you will end up being a murderer or going to jail for murdering your cousin if you don't keep quiet and give me the management rights that you have. And so his dad ended up being the biggest villain, right? It really ended up being his mom's child. The mom kills the grandfather, and the son kills the nephew. So yeah, that's the combination of all that you know, happened for Jin Do-jun in the past life. And I have to say that when episode 15 first began, and we find out that, you know, a few years has passed, I think a year had passed, and so the death repayment for Sunyan card has been completed, and there's a scene where Jin Do-jun walks in and tells his eldest uncle that he's basically the one that, you know, has the most share, and, you know, right before the accident happens, right, he tells his uncle that he's the one that has the most share, and he basically owns Sunyan Group. And his uncle is looking at him like everybody for some reason had no clue. I just have to say, it's a huge plot hole. They all had no clue that it was Miracle Investment behind this whole thing, which is odd to me, and it's bad writing at this point. I don't even think it's really bad writing, because how are you going to tell me a whole year someone has been paying off the debt for your company, Like the Sunyan group, not even just Sunyan, it was Sunyan group and Daeyeon Card. Like Sunyan Card and Daeyeon Card, that they were basically, someone was paying off the debt for these companies. Like had this whole policy going on for this company, and you had no idea like they were the ones. It makes no sense that they are that irresponsible. But maybe that's what the drama is trying to show us, that they are really that irresponsible, and they really aren't so invested in, they aren't good and competent people in running the company. Maybe that's what the drama is trying to say. But for me, it was a huge plot hole that they were all shocked when it came out that Jin Do-jun was the one that became the largest shareholder, because it was the one that ended up acquiring the most shares of Sunyan Group. Like what? And I found it also interesting that when Jin Do-jun's character is finally taken to prison, like called in for questioning about, I don't recall what like at this point he's been called in so many times that I'm like, what? But like my issue with that was that it was Sung-min that was the prosecutor in charge, and I'm like, isn't that like a conflict of interest given that he's an ex-boyfriend? Like again, the drama is making senseless decisions at this point, right? Like even the fact that they went to the same school, we're the same class, I feel like that is enough to mark the fact that she's a conflict of interest and she shouldn't be allowed to investigate her ex-boyfriend. In fact, like he's her ex-boyfriend and she's allowed to investigate now. I'm like, that should not have been possible. But again, our character needs to be there, I guess. But I remember thinking that again, that makes no sense. And episode 15 and 16 had moments like that I was like what's going on? Like at this point, like they are very lucky it's Song Joong-ki they casted in this drama, or I would have dropped it a long time ago actually, because this past 2 episodes just like I was not feeling it at all. But yeah, it's interesting because we also find out that like Jin Do-jun basically orchestrated this whole being invited into the prosecutor's office so that it could spark this fight between the brothers and this fight among their families. And it's so funny because he's playing 4D chess, right, and they're all playing checkers. Like they are so dumb in comparison to Jin Do-jun that actually I understand why the eldest uncle had to go the route he went. It's almost a cowardly route that he went and decided to have Jin Do-jun killed, but it makes sense because when it comes to smarts, right, he can't win. It has to also be an underhanded method that he uses to win. And so I understand why he resulted in murdering Jin Do-jun's character, because like at this point, like how do you, like again, like I mentioned, how do you not know someone is paying off Sunyan Card and that it's your nephew all this time? Like they were all shocked. They were all like, oh, who is it? Oh, it's Jin Do-jun. And I'm like, what? Like how is that possible at this point? Like they've been fooled by him. He's fooled them so many times at this point that they should be on guard. They should have like 10 people watching him every day, like watching every activity he does, and they don't. And so I guess I understood why his uncle decided to go the route he went. He was very pissed. I don't know why he was dumb enough not to be watching Jin Do-jun's actions, but like he was very pissed, and so he felt that was the only way to take Jin Do-jun out of the equation completely, right? And yeah, so there's that. I almost wish that they had left him in the original timeline though, because not the original timeline. I wish they had left him as Jin Do-jun, because I actually wanted to see just how like bad Jin Do-jun could get in this fight with his family members, because just watching the moral degradation of Jin Do-jun like is something I would have liked, because I didn't actually want him to be redeemed. I didn't want any character development for him, and this drama doesn't really give you character development. Yeah, it kind of takes out that element of having him develop as a character by bringing it back into the original timeline and saying, okay, he's no longer Jin Do-jun, he's back to being Yeon-woo, because I feel like, and he also kills the drama a little for me, because I feel like that was the whole point of this drama, to have him take this revenge and remain in that timeline and keep succeeding over them. Like, you know, so like, so I was kind of sad that they didn't go that route, that they like took him out. But again, I guess maybe it makes a little sense because of all the little like things they had introduced about how Jin Do-jun died and his mom having 3% of the shares, things like that. I guess they had that in mind from the beginning, and so maybe it makes sense that they brought him back. But I wish that they had kept him in like as Jin Do-jun, because it would have been more interesting in that way if he had just lived his life as Jin Do-jun rather than come back as Hyun-woo. But yeah, I do have to also say that I think that Tommy Young's character in the original timeline, that is the timeline where there's a Hyun-woo, that's 20 years in the future, I like her better than the Tommy Young in the past. And I guess it makes sense. And actually, I like that because she actually grew as a character. In the 20 years that Jin Do-jun had died, she actually grew as a person. And she was more impressive to me in the future, like, era, like the future timeline than she was in the past, because you could actually see her at work, and her voice wasn't cracking like she wasn't like in love with like Jin Do-jun or Hyun-woo, right? So her voice wasn't cracking. She didn't have tears in her eyes. She wasn't like having this damsel in distress attitude that she was putting on. So she was more impressive. She was grown. She was actually serious. I mean, this is where they call her the Sunyang Group Grim Reaper. And I mean, I like the backstory of how she became that, in that it's Jin Do-jun's death that kind of pushed her into trying to take revenge over this company that had basically killed her fiance. But I like her in the original timeline more so than I did in the new timeline where she's Jin Do-jun's fiance and Jin Do-jun's love interest. I like it more. But yeah, that's basically it for my review of episode 15 and 16. Now, just my final thoughts on this old drama as a whole. I have to say that unfortunately I'm one of those people that I don't find this drama that great. Unfortunately, it's very sad because for a lot of reasons. I mentioned it like as I reviewed this drama that I struggled a lot with the premise of his revenge. That is, I struggled with why he thought that he had the right to take revenge on Sunyang Group for his mother's death and all the bad things that rich people do and stuff like that. More so now, in fact, actually I feel more so about this now that if I find out that he's the original witness to Jin Do-jun's death. Yeah, I mean, we can say that, oh boy, he's the same person, so technically it doesn't matter if he doesn't want to testify towards his own death or something like that. Like, yeah, we can say that, whatever, but actually in truth, Hyun-woo is such a hypocrite. Like, he is such a hypocrite because, and this drama kind of brushes it aside like it doesn't matter. But no, it actually does, because he's the original witness that kept quiet towards the wrongdoing of Sunyang Group when he found out that, like, the eldest uncle, right, the eldest son of Sunyang Group killed his own nephew. He kept quiet about it for a job. Right, and that makes him the biggest hypocrite, because all this time he made it seem like as if he was pristine when he went back for his revenge. He made it seem like he was pristine, and he was doing it out of the goodness of his heart for the people. Like, obviously Sunyang has hurt a lot of people, blah blah blah. Like, that's how the drama made it seem. And then we find out that he had basically aided, and I don't know if he's aiding and abetting, but he basically witnessed a crime and kept quiet about it, right? Which is like the worst thing you could do. So his character now, actually compared to Jin Sung-jun's character, is actually worse, because actually Jin Sung-jun actually never did anything wrong in comparison to Hyun-woo. Yes, I know Jin Sung-jun kept quiet because it's his dad and stuff like that, but I somehow can relate more to Jin Sung-jun keeping quiet about the fact that his dad killed his cousin than I can that Hyun-woo knew about it and kept quiet, right, because he wanted a job. So I don't think he was in any place to judge anybody. He should not be judging anybody, because he's the worst person in that sense. I don't know why. Okay, so at the end, the last few scenes, we see that he sees Sung-min on the street, and she's smiling at him, and I'm like, why is she smiling at him? Like, he knew about the death of your fiance. Like, how? I know, like, we're supposed to like rationalize about the fact that yes, he's the same person, that's why maybe she feels a connection or blah 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 blah. But like, no one is pissed that he kept quiet this whole time. How is that possible? Like, am I the only one who finds this odd? Like, it makes no sense to me, because 100% he should be in jail. Like, he should be in jail all this time for keeping it a secret and getting a job for it. Like, that's a crime. There's no way. It has to be a crime, right, guys? Like, how is it not a crime, right? So I struggled with that at the beginning of this drama, that he was that pissed about Sunyang Group using owner rights and the succession of children of Sunyang Group, right? Because he made it seem like as if he was perfect and they were bad, but actually Hyunwoo's character isn't a good person. He's close to being a sociopath, actually, because I don't understand how it's okay that he just kept quiet about it for all this time, and he, like, he made it seemed like, I mean, now that he's experienced life, he knows that the person he witnessed died then was actually himself. But it's not something like he had no memory of that while he was still, like when he first got into Jin Do-jun's body. But like as time went on and when he came back, he realized, oh yeah, that's who death he witnessed then, right? So like that's my biggest grip with this drama, that Hyun-woo, we're just like, because he's our male lead, we're supposed to just accept. But I don't even know if I can call him an anti-hero. I guess he's still an anti-hero, but he's a criminal. I feel like he's a criminal. There's no way he shouldn't be in jail for what he did. Like, what? But yeah, I think that was my biggest issue about this whole drama, is that the premise of the fact that he was taking revenge on Sunyan group for all the bad things they do, and just being who they are, right? I did not buy it, and I think it's more out of jealousy than it is out of anything else. It's not because he actually cares about the poor people like his mom that suffered from it. No, I think it's out of jealousy that he's not them, because when he became them, he acted just like them. So it definitely wasn't because he was this good Samaritan kind of person. So yeah, I wish the drama had, maybe used a better premise. I would have preferred that premise of like, I just want what they have and I will take what they have. I like, greed would have been a better premise than this holier than thou good Samaritan premise that they went with. And I have to say that, like, I saw that at the end of episode 16, like when Jin Sung-joon basically went insane at the airing and he was removed from the room, and they switched to a scene where Mo Hyun-min just like, she dipped as soon as things got hard. Like, and I'm sure at this point she's had like 2 kids for him and everything, but like she divorced him quick. I'm shocked at how quick she divorced him. And it was just funny for me to see that, because yeah, actually, like, you girl, like, I don't even know why they got married in the first place. She should have stayed single, honestly. But again, I struggle so hard again with this Hyun-woo thing. So I feel like I felt bad for Jin Sung-joon's character, because it wasn't actually that bad. Now that I know what I know, right? This whole time I was thinking, yeah, I mean, in the original timeline he was a dick, but like in theory, like total overall, he wasn't that much of a bad person. Like it's I don't know, like it's something. I struggle with that. Definitely I struggle with that. But yeah, that's my review of Reborn Rich. It's been 16 episodes. It's been fun watching Song Joong-ki and Sung-bin. God, I'm going to miss Sung-bin's character, because he made the drama very worthwhile and worth watching. And so yeah, it was a lovely 16 episode run. I don't think I would give it that high of a mark. Maybe like an 8. And that's me just being like generous at this point, because there are a lot of plot holes and a lot of issues I have with the main character, because of how he's presented, because it's like even if the character is not aware of how bad of a person he is. But yeah, otherwise this drama was fun. And yeah, that's basically the end of Reborn Rich review for me. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to give me a rating on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcast. My website is www.dramasology.com. Thank you guys so much for listening again, and yeah, bye.